that are present. We'll start there and I'll go back to the Zoom meeting after. Anyone wishing to address the board? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Demo.
My name is Margaret Demo. I live at 14 Grove Street in Messina, New York. I'm a concerned parent and citizen, and since I have heard about this issue, I have been very disturbed to think that there's even a possibility of removing the fluoride from the water. I have 3 sons that are in 40s, 50s age range, and they have benefited greatly from having the fluoride in the water. One of my sons has never had a cavity. The other 2 have had 1, 2 tops, and they've been fortunate that they were able to have the fluoride in good dental care. I'm speaking on behalf of all children, but especially the children that will not have the benefit of good dental care through no fault of their own. And the benefit of the fluoride in the water will greatly enhance their health. And decay is one of the prime problems for dental health and also your physical health. It can impact your heart and other organs. And I don't know the whole thing about why it's even being raised, who it will benefit to take this away from the children. And if it's not a great benefit for the community as a whole, I wish that you would just leave well enough alone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll do one more. Dr. Negus?
Yes?
Yes, I see you had your hand up.
May I sit in that chair
Sure.
up there?
Or you can sit right there if you want, Dr. Negus.
Oh.
It's fine. You can come up. It's up to you.
That's easier.
Oh, thank you, Bob. My name is Dr. Charles Negus. I practiced dentistry here for 43 years. We had this discussion when I first came to town 58 years ago. It has been in the water for 57 years. This is a recommended treatment by the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association, the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization said fluoridation of the water supply was the most important health gain in 50 years. And that's because dental decay attacks not just your teeth, but the whole body because of its start of the whole digestive system. When first proposed, the original recommendation was 1 part per million. It was revised most recently at 0.7 parts per million, which was a 30% reduction because the effect is still there at the reduced level. There are no adverse effects reported by any reputable researcher, and I want to stress the word reputable. The impact on society by removal of fluoride is to be felt most by our poorest socioeconomic group, because most dentists don't accept Medicaid patients because of dismal reimbursement rates. opponents will say, have everybody give their children fluoride tablets. Physicians will tell you that the compliance rate for taking prescribed medication or written prescription is at best 60%. If you're going to rely on people to take a non-prescribed medication, I think you will find it will be even less. And that will affect our poorest people. Anecdotally, my own children benefited from fluoride in the water supply. Their parents did not. Neither my wife nor I grew up in a fluoridated water supply. Each parent of my children have more fillings individually than all 6 children combined. Gentlemen, this should not even have been brought up for discussion. This is a no-brainer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Neves. I'll go to the Zoom meeting. Is there anyone on the Zoom meeting wishing to speak?
Thanks again, Todd.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Dr. Johnny Johnson. I'm a pediatric dentist. I am the president of the nonprofit American Fluoridation Society, which is a group of healthcare professionals that help to help in communities to have credible research information strictly on water fluoridation, because as the dentist that just said, the gentleman just spoke so eloquently, and so many things I would have mentioned, and I did send information to you all today earlier. This is something that is just a fantastic public health measure. Fluoridation is something that I'll give you my address, so I'm sorry, I forgot something there. My address is P.O. Box 2450, Chiefland, Florida. It's on the west coast of Florida. Water fluoridation is not something that was dreamt up or, as you will hear some say, we couldn't find a way to get rid of it. It was a toxic byproduct of some industry. You know, this is just laughable because it is something that you're asked to believe that there is a conspiracy that others will tell you that we as dentists were told in dental school that fluoride was good for the teeth, and therefore we began telling people that because we helped the industry get rid of something they couldn't get rid of. Well, frankly, we found out by accident in a scientific discovery which was observed by a dentist in 1901 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It was discovered abroad in the 1800s that fluoride had a positive effect on the teeth. Only the dentist in 1901, Frederick McKay, went out to set up his practice, and he noticed that his patients had almost no cavities and some brown stains when they were born there or they moved in as infants. Now, in 1901, think about it, no cavities. How unusual do you think that was? Extremely so. But he did know what it was. The brown stains didn't really come off easily, if at all. So he looked around and eventually found other areas similar and some that weren't like this. And the Public Health Service went out got involved. They went through about 30 years of research to try and figure it out. All they could figure out was there were people from that community, the only thing they did in common was drink the water. Well, the Public Health Service found other communities around the country that had very low cavities, again, extremely unusual, and good-looking teeth. The water was the same thing they drank. They tested it again, just like they did in Colorado Springs. Nothing was unusual. Well, in 1930, a chemist invented a fluoride probe. We didn't know how to evaluate it previously because we didn't have a probe for it. So the dentist in Colorado Springs and the water from these other areas with good-looking teeth and a few cavities, they sent the water to be tested. What we found was at higher levels of 2 to 12 parts per million, your water is at 0.7, 0.70 or 0.73, I believe I was told. At 2 to 12 parts per million, you get brown stains and very few cavities. But as the gentleman before said, at 1 part per million, in the areas where the teeth look good, very few cavities again. Mother Nature showed us water has, almost all water, including the ocean, has fluoride in it naturally. It's just typically too low to prevent cavities, like it does when it's in the water at the optimal amount. So fluoridated water has been studied for over 75 years in this country. There's almost 7,000 pieces of literature and research on the National Library of Medicine on water fluoridation. The preponderance of the evidence, the overwhelming preponderance of any literature is what we make our decisions on. And what we make our decisions on in public health is, what is the main part of the body of evidence show? And it shows that water fluoridation is effective in reducing cavities above and beyond those already reduced by fluoridated toothpaste. You get another 25% of cavities reduced when you start fluoridating your water, which, bless you, your family is benefiting greatly from. And also, there are no health effects whatsoever from low levels of fluoride in water. You'll hear others, and I did write in my email to you, you'll know others on this call talk about IQ. There are no health effects, including IQ, at levels of fluoride in water. None. There are studies, including 2 recently published pieces of literature that I gave you, one by the former National Toxicology Executive Director, or the National Toxicology Director, Linda Birnbaum, and they found at low levels of fluoride there are no IQ issues, period. So I don't want to belabor a lot of things that the gentleman said before me, but I will tell you that the leading health and scientific organizations in the world support water fluoridation as effective and safe. American Academy of Pediatrics, American Dental Association, CDC, Department of Defense requires every base with 3,300 troops on them to fluoridate their water everywhere in the world because they know it increases readiness for our troops. Homeland Security is affected by our deployable troops. 50% of our Army recruits coming in are not deployable because of cavities. Cavities are an infectious and transmissible disease, and it is the most common chronic disease of adults and children. It's not just children, it's adults. And some of you, I have a lot of gray hair, some of you may be starting to get receding gums. Cavities occur on our gums on our roots of our teeth easier because it's not as hard of a tooth structure. And that's why adults many times lose their teeth. We're good as dentists. We can do nice fillings on those back teeth and the roots, but they don't stay in. It's so hard to keep them dry. Therefore, fluoride benefits adults as well, plus those that don't have the manual dexterity or they're mentally challenged that they can't take care of themselves. I will tell you, for less than a pack of gum, for less than 50 cents a year per person, you're preventing cavities for adults and children. It is supported again by every major health and scientific organization in the world. Please, 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 do keep it in the water. I will tell you that you should not be put in this situation, members of the board. You all are having to do what everybody else has had to do in different communities when somebody doesn't agree that they want it on the decision-making body. Potsdam, just a few years ago, I was there helping them keep it in the water. Buffalo is having a big deal right now, which I won't even go into, but it is just a bunch of junk. Unfortunately, that's been caused by people who oppose fluoridation. Fluoridation is a health protective mechanism for not only your mouth, but for the body, as the previous gentleman said. We live in a democratic society. We live in one where we take care of the masses of people. It's not one where you can pick and choose something you do or don't want to do. Public health is like public roads or public libraries. It's for the greater good of the community. I will lastly tell you that your community, as you well know, has a poverty rate of over 20%. Those living in impoverished conditions have twice as many cavities as those that do not. Twice as many. They have more toothaches, more missed school days, more missed days from work, lower incomes because they have teeth that are just rotten in the front of their mouths. They're not able to get those teeth taken care of because they don't have the money, and they're less likely to get better paying jobs. It's something that you can do for everybody. Not everybody has the opportunity to go to the dentist. Some people, the only preventing measure they'll ever get is fluoridated water. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have, and I really thank you for listening to me. Happy to help you in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, John, appreciate it. Any questions from the doctor? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Is there anyone else on the Zoom meeting that wishes to address the board? Come back, Rick.
Okay, yeah, Richard Marshall, live on Green Home Circle. I just wanted to say, the leading cause of hospitalization in Britain is dental decay for children 6 to 10. So Britain is going to start to fluoridate the water. Now, it's been noted that most countries in Europe, or most of the people in Europe don't have fluoridated water. I looked that up too. There's 21 countries in Europe. Out of those 21, I believe 14, even if they don't fluoridate the water naturally have levels of fluoridation of at least 1.5 parts per million, which is more than twice as much as what's required. Or they fluoridate their milk, and or they fluoridate their salt. So most people in developed countries have fluoridated water. I mean, if you think of your parents or grandparents, especially for most of you, how many of them had their teeth? I assume everybody in here probably still has most of their teeth, because we have fluoridated water. Fluoridation is, from what I've read in studies, is much more important than flossing or brushing your teeth for preventing dental caries. I hope that you keep that in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else here? Bob?
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be real popular with this group. I'm Bob LeBeff, live over in East Hatfield Street, and I started a movement against the fluoride about 20 years ago, probably in this room. I engaged Dr. Paul Conant, who's one of the world's leading researchers on fluoride. He was a chemistry professor at St. Lawrence University, so I'm sure many of his students were pre-med students, you know, so he was teaching. He has a mountain of evidence against fluoride. Yet the studies show the percentage decrease in cavities is tiny. The thing that kind of bothers me is fluoride is not a medication. I mean, it's not a nutrient, it is a medication. So what right does anybody have to medicate somebody else against their will? You know, really, who's in favor of medicating people against their will?
Necessary.
Yeah, don't give me the yeah. If you look at the studies, there's a pile of evidence against it. And the natural fluoride, you know, I didn't brush up on this. I'm remembering stuff from 20 years ago. It seems to me that Colorado Springs, the fluoride compound in the water was calcium fluoride. And the fluoride they're putting in the water is not that. And what they put in the water is different than what they put in toothpaste. There's different fluoride compounds. And the calcium fluoride in these Colorado Springs and a few places, yeah, I guess that did make some kind of a difference. But the fluoride they're using is not it. And back when I was into this more, it seemed to me that the compounds they're putting in the water hadn't been studied at all. They studied the fluoride that they put in the toothpaste, their Crest and that. But I'm not sure what they put in the water has been tested at all. You know, to really understand this, you've got to put some time into to reading, and if you don't, you're forming your opinions mostly on emotion. And you know, I understand that there's some very smart people on both sides of the issue, but you know, that's pretty common on just about any issue. There's going to be people on both sides, you know, smart people, and there's not an agreement. To me, well, first of all, it's not a huge issue for me anymore because I have a reverse osmosis filter under my sink. I don't do it. You know, no fluoride. Dr. Snyder, when he was in town, he had a whole house reverse osmosis filter. Okay, he didn't even want to shower in it. But you know, if it stays in. Oh, the other thing that bothers me about it, and Dr. Conant brought this up quite a bit, is you can't control dosage. It's in just about every liquid. So, you know, depending on how much water you drink, any of your bottled beverages at all, the city those were bottled in probably had fluoride in their water. So you're getting it everywhere you turn. How do you control dosage of a medication? It doesn't make sense to me, but that's only my opinion. But I encourage you to read the research on it. Make up your mind.
Rebuttal? Thank you. Not yet, Dr. Negus. I think we've got somebody else in line to, that wanted to speak. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak?
That's just mine.
Oh, okay.
It just shows up, sorry.
Got you. Anyone else that hasn't addressed the board yet? Yes?
My name's Susan Warren. I live at 8 George Street. Have lived in the village all my life. I'm a retired dental hygienist. I don't have any statistics for you, but I just know what I saw in the 30 years that I was in practice at different practices. First started off with, well, way back when with Dr. Reagan, and then went to Dr. Volkert, who was a big proponent, loved his fluoride. because he saw, and Dr. Fulbert would never turn anyone away, whether they had money to pay for their dental work or not, because he believed that children and adults needed to have dental work done. And he especially believed with the children and fluoride, and that's what he fought for, so that we could make our community a healthier community. I just wish that you would take all of that into consideration. We're talking about our kids. My kids grew up here. They won't like what I'm saying right now. I have 3 daughters. They have beautiful teeth, and you can't say it's just because I'm a hygienist. They brush their own teeth when they were younger. But one of them has moved out of town, has well water. She has 3 children. They all have had a cavity already. So that, maybe that's not the complete reason, but I do believe in fluoride. I really wish the board, how much money are we talking here? We're talking about the health of our children and our adults. So please consider it, please think about it. Thank you.
Dr. Nevis?
I was concerned about dosage. I don't know how you could drink enough water to overdose yourself on 7/10 of a part per million of a drug. He's concerned about forcing medication on people. If you follow his line of thinking, we should also take chlorine out of our drinking water. That's a chemical sister of fluoride. I beg you not to take chlorine out of the water. We would have dysentery before you turned around.
Thank you.
And
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Yes?
My name is Frances Marcel. I live on Marie Street. And I'm a retired St. Lawrence County Public Health employee. I did the dental sealant program with Suzanne Hamill for 25 years. We covered every school in the county. So we saw the difference between the fluoridated areas and the non-fluoridated areas, and it makes a big difference. I don't have the statistic to show it, but we saw thousands and thousands of kids. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. In order to have the discussion about fluoridation, I do think we need a motion on the table. So I would ask for a motion for the authorization to purchase hydrofluosilic acid to continue the fluoridation program for the fiscal year of 2023-4. I'd entertain a motion.
So
Moved by trustee Simpson, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Peets. Discussion. Amongst us.
You want me to start?
If you want.
I'd be more than happy to. So I did a little research here. This is just on some numbers of water. Luckily, the DPW did give me a whole bunch of good information. So last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? So last year, 466 million gallons of water went through the water treatment plant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the village consumed or billed for 298 million gallons of water, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I was getting
Okay. So here's some other numbers I was given. I asked for how many residential and non-residential units we have who partake in our water system, right? So there are 5,086 residential units, and there's 270 non-residential units. So here's some information I got from the census. So on average, Messina has an average of 2.09 persons per household. And on average, the average person, this was from University out west, I have that information if somebody wants it too. On average, the average person a year drinks 182.5 gallons of water. So, per year, each person, and each year, that's how much they drink. Per year, a person uses, an individual person, this came from the same website, 31,025 gallons of water. That's per person, which is a lot of water. So I did some quick numbers here, thanks to Google. So if we take those numbers into consideration, we end up with the residential units times the number of people in a household, times the number of gallons. So it comes up to just under 2 million gallons of water that could possibly be used for drinking in the village, right? So compared to the 466 million, that ends up being less than 99.5%. So does that make sense to everybody? How much of the water is being drank, which is 0.42%. Does that make sense? So, I know I asked what this fluoride costs. It's around 25,000, right, give or take?
22,000 something?
So, all right. So if you think of it as the big picture, right? So it's costing the village $22,000, right? At the end of the day, after we calculate how much water is being drank, we're only utilizing $104 worth of that. I think with that $22,000, maybe there's a different avenue we could go to, because most of that water is not being utilized for what it was used for, right? Because we're fluoridizing the 466 million gallons, not just the 2 million gallons. Does that make sense? So at the end of the day, we're taking 22 grand and we're ending up with $100 worth of product. I think we could utilize that somewhere else. So my other point, I think the fluoride got out of the picture a little bit. I think, so if you live in the village and you have water supplied to your house, you don't have an option. You have to purchase water from the village, right? You have to purchase it from the village. You can't have a dug well, right? The village code says you can't have a dug well. Why do we as a small community, why don't we just more concerned on giving the best product that we can give to our community, the cleanest water, and if somebody wants to do something extra, let them do it. Why are we mandating people against their will? So if I have a family, and if I want to do something, if I want to give my family vitamins, if I want to cut out soda, if I want to cut out sweets, right? That should be my family's responsibility. It shouldn't be the responsibility of small government to tell me how to take care of my family.
Thank you.
And just to jump on that, I don't think anyone's saying that fluoride is bad. We
Oh,
all
I'm
know
not
the
saying it's
benefits.
bad.
No one's saying that fluoride is bad. I like what you said, Bob, about that we don't know how much fluoride we're getting. It's naturally in water, it's naturally in bottled water, it's naturally in potatoes, it's naturally in berries. We're getting fluoride throughout the day. So what about the part where there are adverse effects? And I know, forgetting your name online, had said that there aren't any adverse effects, but it doesn't take long to research and find out that there are various adverse effects: fatigue, acne, various types of cancer, joint pain. So is everyone that's done research, you don't agree with that? You don't think there's any adverse effects of excess fluoride? Excess.
I think you're talking about excess fluoride.
Exactly.
we're not proposing that you put excess fluoride in the drinking water. You're doing it in a controlled fashion.
But how can it be controlled if we're already getting it in other foods that we're consuming, other products we're consuming?
How much are you going to eat?
I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to control that, it's hard to know how much each and every one of us is getting.
I
And
think-
while we definitely want to not have dental decay be an issue, there are other things we could do in the community dental decay programs, free toothbrushes.
Not as effective,
No.
and that has been proven.
Thank you. Any other board member wish to address the board? All right, nobody else will, I have a few things to say. I've learned more about fluoride, and I think everyone has, this, than I ever really cared to be honest with you. When I first talked about fluoride, the only thing I knew was fluoride good in water, fluoride not in water bad. That was the extent of my knowledge. Well, I've done a little bit of research. I've looked at a few things. I know, Bob, you had mentioned what I'm guessing is the Fluoride Action Network. I did some research on them, and not just necessarily looking at their data, but one of the things about that network never publishes their own studies, ever. Okay? And the reason why is the study would have to go through a peer review process, and it never has, because they never published anything. Instead, what they do is they use other studies from areas that don't regulate community water fluoridation, and they cherry pick certain studies to fit their narrative, okay? Rarely are the studies used from the communities in the United States who participate in the community water fluoridation. They actually choose studies from Mexico, Mexico City, China, and parts of Canada that don't do water fluoridation. I spoke with other dentists in the community. I spoke with Dr. Scruggs. I asked him about fluorosis, which is one of the things that they were talking about earlier. He's rarely seen any cases. He hasn't seen a case in decades because, and actually the cases that he did see actually came from water wells out in Akwesasne and also the eastern part of the town, because those water wells had excessive amounts of fluoride, so it caused fluorosis. Once those areas actually hooked into the water system, we could control the amount of fluoride that they were getting. And as a result, fluorosis went away. I talked to Dr. Isaac, and we spoke for a little bit. He was very much in favor of community water fluoridation. And basically the same observations as Dr. Scruggs. He hasn't seen a case of fluorosis in quite some time. Dr. Curran, I think is on the thing. And actually Dr. Isaac put me in touch with Dr. Tom Curran. He's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon specialist out of Elmira, New York. And he retired in 1998 after 37 years, and he focused on community water fluoridation. He saw one case in 37 years, and it was from a gentleman that moved from the Midwest who was on well water. Not once did he see a case in his own community who participated in community fluoridation. And we talked about, and Dr. Negus and everyone said children's 2 to 3 years of age, they need that community water fluoridation in brushing their teeth. One of the other things, the concerns about overdose. 1 8-ounce glass of water, all right? 90% of the fluoride is going to leave your body within 90 minutes through, excuse my vulgarity, human body here, sweat, spit, or urination. The other 10% gets absorbed back into the saliva, helping with this hardening the enamel and such. The $22,000 we spend is probably the most cost-effective way to deliver the right amount of fluoride to children in their infancy until 17 years of age. And it still benefits adults afterwards. One of the things that I think that we're forgetting, if we were to stop doing this, the Department of Health is going to make us come up with a program where we have to give fluoride to other groups, that's gonna cost more than $22,000. I'm quite sure of that. Some other general comments, as we said, we're economically challenged. I think this service is vital for low-income families and their children. And I'm gonna read the list of the organizations in support of community water. Now, mind you, there were 120. I narrowed it down. The American Academy of Family Physicians, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Association of Oral Maxillofacial Surgeons, the American Council on Science and Health, the American Dental Assistants Association, the American Dental Association, the American Dental Hygienists Association, the American Medical Association, the American Nurses Association, the American Public Health Association, the Canadian Dental Association, the Canadian Dental Hygienists Association, the Canadian Public Health Association, the Centers for Disease Control, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, the Mayo Clinic, the National Cancer Institute, the National Dental Association, the U.S. Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. National Institutes of Health, the U.S. Public Health Service, every U.S. Surgeon General since 1950, the World Health Organization, the New York State Department of Health, and all 50 of the health agencies of the states. So I guess my question is, if these guys, all of these doctors, these lawyers, these dentists, these hygienists, if they're saying this is good, what are we doing? That would be all I would say. Anyone else have any other comments? Okay, so we'll vote on the, whoop,
I was just gonna say that if we don't purchase enough fluoride, for the remainder of the year, and correct me if I'm wrong, DOH can come in and fine us, it's $25,000. I don't know if it's,
There's floor fences and I believe it's 25 per fence.
but, I mean, that's, we'd be fined more than it cost us.
yep. So, we'll do this via roll call vote, please. So, again, the motion is for the authorization to purchase the hydrofluoric acid to continue fluoridation. Trustee Peets.
With the discussion going forward to continue the conversation that we just started.
Are you offering an amendment?
Yes,
What's your amendment?
to consider in the future to start the committee to remove
To come up with a committee to
clean fluoride.
remove fluoridation.
You have to vote for it. We're authorized to purchase that.
Yes, I authorized purchase.
For this fiscal
This
year.
fiscal year.
For this fiscal year?
Yes,
Okay. If you want to come back and recommend a committee,
yeah,
I can do that.
thank you.
All right, so, yes, trustee McGowan.
As I stated before, I'm really opposed to putting anything in our water that's not used to clean the water, to deliver the water. I understand where we are with this. It's pretty crazy where someone, I'm gonna bite my tongue, I'm not saying anymore with that.
Ken, would you like to abstain?
Good question.
Trustee Winston?
I do appreciate everyone sharing today, and while I do think we need to go forward thinking about research and getting some more input from other towns, other communities, I'm gonna say yes to the purchase, because I don't wanna see us accrue fees and end up paying more money than we should anyway, just so that we can get through this with Department of Health, and then we can continue to look into it. So yes to the purchase.
Trustee Simpson?
I'm an aye. I'm an educator, and if I don't have the answers, I trust pros. It's pretty simple for me.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes. So the department, Taylor, you and Marty will begin the process of the purchase for the fiscal year of 23-24. Good. Now we're actually going into boring business, so it's.
You want us to go?
No, stick around if you want, it won't take us long.
It's actually nice to see people out of board meetings.
Yeah. We need to establish a public hearing for the CDBG grant application for preliminary engineering report, either classroom or. Wonderful.